Hey everybody, Brandon from the Vancouver Pupps here with another workshop, and today I'm going to be making a new marionette. So I decided to pull out a couple of the marionettes that we've already worked on here. This was the most recent one that we worked on. This is the dancing marionette here that I can sing and dance with. But this is actually the original marionette, and this is the one that I actually want to work on creating a replacement for this one. Because we've learned a lot since the first marionette that we made here, and this has been a really good one, but I've been wanting to retire some of my early puppets, certainly the early hand puppet and the first marionette, and I just want to create a new one because I've learned a lot about marionette making in the 8 or 9 years that I've been making these puppets now. So yeah, we have here, I have a new doll, a new Oko doll that we can use, and this is set up the same way as we've done all the other ones, with the mouth that will sort of close naturally with gravity. And we're going to be using a string to make him speak. And this one has the legs that I like, and the arms that I like, and all the internal parts that I like for the marionette. So yeah, so this was our original marionette that I made like about 8 years ago now when I first started the Vancouver Pupps. And this is the one that I use to get a lot of full body shots when I'm sort of filming little comedy sketches around the apartment and stuff like that. And yeah, we learned a lot from this one. You know, this was the basic one, and we got these handles that work different parts. I think this one is the hands. And these were just like plastic archery bows that I got from the dollar store kids section. The legs were always one of the trickier parts on this, but I've redesigned Oko's legs. You can look in previous workshops in the playlist to find out sort of the videos that we did on improving Oko's legs and the arms. And then this one also had the added feature of the eyes. And I also had a string that was to control his mouth. Anyway, hopefully that whole trigger system works for this new one as well, because the new handle that I'm going to be making is going to have a whole bunch of triggers and things that we can add, so it should be pretty advanced. But yeah, I'm ready to sort of let this one go and say goodbye to the original marionette and hang him up somewhere. I really want to just retire. I need some room here in the studio, so I just want to clear out some of the original ones and sort of put them away and preserve them and keep them with the family and move forward with more advanced puppets like this one and the one we'll be making today. Yeah, so what I want to do is, I've been doing some research on different kinds of marionette handles, and I've taken a look at how we've done the one in the past, and I have sort of come up with a design that I think will be pretty good. So the design that we're sort of going to be working off of for the marionette, for the new marionette, this one is going to be called a double plane handle marionette, because the handle looks sort of like two planes. But that one is going to have a bunch of features with it as well. So I've already gotten some pieces all ready to sort of set this up. Yeah. So I've got some pieces already set up, laid out on the work table. So let's take a look at the new handle that we're going to be hoping to create in order to manipulate this new marionette, this new Oko marionette, which we can add to our collection here. Alright, so here are the parts of the marionette handle that I'm working on. So as you can see, there's these two that go on top of one another. And it's called a double plane marionette handle. And these are going to be set up in a way so that you can move all of them at once, or you can separate them and just move the top one, which is for the feet. And the nice feature of this one is that I've added magnets here so that you can also remove the foot bar and reattach it. So So we'll be looking a little bit more at these, but this is the top bar and the more plain one. That's the one for the foot. And then the one underneath will have the strings for the head. And then underneath, there's a whole bunch of different eyelets that are going to be for threading the strings. There's going to be one for the shoulder. And then these ones in the front are going to be for the arms, as well as these ones that will be connecting the hands. And then this one is going to be a string for the mouth, opening the mouth. I've also made these little dowel pieces with eyelets on it, and these are going to be attached underneath. I've marked 2 spots here where there's going to be these attached, and these are going to act as little switches that we'll be able to pull these to pull a string. So that's sort of a new feature that I'm looking forward to trying out. I watched a lot of videos on YouTube to sort of get ideas of different kinds of marionette handles and things, and I sort of pulled some of the best ideas from several that I could find. So what I'm going to be doing next is I want to paint these black, and yeah, just give them a quick finish. So that's what I'm going to do next, and then once that's done, then I'm going to attach this cord, which is what's going to be used to connect them through these holes here. I'm going to be threading that rope in using knots. And the nice thing about using that is that it'll make this collapsible. But you'll get more of an idea of how that's going to look once I start putting it together. But like I said, the first thing I'm going to do now is just paint these black and then let them set overnight. And then we'll start working on the cord. All right, so we have the pieces all done. So here is the 2 planes, painted and finished for now. And I've also made notches at the ends where we can add the line and include extra so that we can always adjust the lengths if we wanted to. All right, so I don't need the top part for the legs for now, so I'm going to just put those aside, and we're going to just deal with these 2. And we're going to keep this together with some cord. I have this black cotton cord. So the bottom plane, you want to make sure that the eyelets are at the bottom. And then for the top plane, you're going to make sure that the magnet side is up. So these holes I've drilled are just about the right size for these. Hopefully it's not too much trouble getting these through. Maybe I can add some tape to this. I could probably just cut it too, but let me just see if this helps. I think I'll do both. I think I'll do this and cut it. All right. So on the underside here, we're going to tie a knot. And make sure that it's very tight. Yeah, that's perfect. If you're worried about the knot coming through, then you can add a washer. Now this is the trick. Oh yeah, then we want to add a knot here as well. There's lots of knots here, so I'm going to make sure that's nice and tight. We want to make sure these knots are right tight against the wood. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, now we want a second knot, which is going to go up against the back of the top. And this is where you want to be a little careful, But you want to add a little gap between these two knots. That's about 1/2 inch to a full inch. I'm going to do about 1/2 inch, hopefully. Right about there. That looks about right to me. Between 1 inch and 1/2 inch. Alright, so that ended up being, looked like, yeah, from 1 inch from outside of both parts of the knot. You don't want it too far because you want to be able to grab these. Alright, and then making sure that magnet's side up. Send that through and then tie another knot. I actually wish that was probably maybe a little... Yeah, I want it a little closer, I think. Come on. Yeah, before it got too tight. There we are. Yeah, that's better. So I just made this gap a little smaller. That's a little bit better. That's a little bit more, I think, what I'm looking for. Make sure that is all tight. Okay. So we're going to make sure this is tight, and then we're going to tie a knot here. All right, so there we are so far. 4 knots, 1 on each side of the board, separated by about, what I want is about 1/2 inch. That looks about perfect. All right, now we want to leave a bit of an arch. How are we going to do this? Let's see. We want to basically, yeah, leave a little bit of a handle and then have another knot. So right around here is where we want the knot. Okay. I think I can even do a little smaller, a little smaller. The nice thing about just doing all this in knots is that if I'm never not feeling really good about this, I can just redo it. I can just cut the cord, or we can just restring things. Or, you know, use another method or so. Let's see how this feels. Put this through. Yeah, like nothing. The cord is not actually attached or glued in place or anything. It's all right. So is that? Trying to see if I like that. I don't know. Guess that's big enough. Kind of want it to cover my back of my hand a little bit more. I'm gonna try and make it a little tighter. What if it's more like this? I'll go with the tighter. I'll go with that. I think that's pretty good. All right, and now we're going to add a knot underneath. Oops. I'll go like this. So make sure it's tight. I could even like secure these knots with like some glue or something if I really wanted to. All right, so now this is where we need to be a little more aware of what we're doing. So I need to make a second knot now. That's the same length down that I did the last time I was going between them. So that's like about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to very carefully here do the second knot, see how it looks. I'm gonna get down there. How do you move this knot down? Yep. Down to about 1/2 inch, yeah. It's gonna be like this. So here, I'll just put it through and see how it looks. I think it looks pretty good. Okay. Yeah, that looks pretty even to me, I think. So that's good. So now we'll keep that tight and do our last knot on the underside here. There we are. We went all the way around. All right, so there we go. So here's the plane, and I can hold it like this. But if we want, you can have the puppet. The bottom one will be more sort of anchored once it's connected to the puppet itself. But the whole idea here is that you could work everything together or separately and control the feet with this when you walk along. And then you can take that off and manipulate the hands yourself if you want. All right, so the last thing I need to do is add the little triggers under here. And I've made 3, but I'm only going to add 2. I just made an extra one so that we could add that in the future if we wanted to. But there's 2 little holes here where these are going to be connected, and then those are going to be, one is going to be used to control the eyes, and one is going to be used to control the mouth, is going to be the idea. So it's a little hard to see these now that I've painted it, but hopefully I'm going to be able to get these in. No, I think we're good. Here's the first one, and this is the one that's going to be closest to the hand. So this is most likely going to be for the mouth. And then the one that's going to be a little further away is going to be the eyes, because I won't have to do those ones as often. The most important thing is that we can get his mouth moving, you know, hopefully, so that he can talk or sing. Whatever we're doing at the time with Oko, with this marionette. All right, good. So that's it. I think we're done. I think we're ready for strings. So that's sort of what it looks like. I'm going to reorient the camera and we'll take another look at this before we move on with some stringing. All right, so here is the handle, how it looks. Basically, you can hold it all together, or you can drop it, and the puppet will keep this bar in place, and you can kind of like swivel the top bar back and forth in order to make his feet move, theoretically. I mean, this sort of design is actually meant for smaller marionettes, really lightweight ones, and Oko is a pretty big puppet to actually make a marionette out of. So I've had to scale everything up and make everything a little bit bigger. So, you know, it's going to be interesting once we get all this wired up to see just how well this is going to work. I'm confident. I think it's going to work. Then these are the triggers underneath. So here you can see where the hand strap is, there is an eyelet. I don't know if that shows up very well, but that's where the first eyelet is, and that's going to be for his shoulders. And then close to that is the first switch. So these ones that are hanging here, you see? I'm hoping that that one is going to be reachable pretty easily in order to do the mouth. I'm going to pull this trigger, and the tip of that will have a string which will go to another eyelet in the front that should be directly above the tip of his nose. And then the second one here will just be for the eyelids. So there we go, guys. So that's sort of how it all looks. I think it looks pretty good. I'm kind of happy how it turned out, but now we got to actually attach this to the doll and see if it'll all work. All right, so I'm going to now, we're just gonna take one last look at the original marionette before I put him away, just so I can kind of show sort of the differences between that one and this one that we're doing. And yeah, we'll start stringing up Oko onto his new double plane marionette handle. All right, so here's the original two marionettes. So this is the standard marionette, and this is the dancing marionette, which is operated a little bit differently, particularly with the feet. But the thing I wanted to show that I'm using, it's kind of hard to show here, the way it's set up, but in order to hold these ones up, I have a string on each side of the body and two strings in the head, up and plus one in the back, actually, to make sure that his head tips forward. But for the most part, Oko's being held up by 4 strings, 2 at the body and 2 at the head that go up to the same bar. And I've just been doing that for support so that Oko has, this was an earlier model, particularly this one here, the first marionette I made, but he's also pretty heavy because he's got a more solid core, a foam inside, and he basically weighs a lot more than the new doll that I've created. So I've learned, that weight is a very important component to marionette puppetry. So I've, concentrated on making the new Oko very light. And as such, I'm hoping I'll be able to hold him up by just the strings with the head. Because that's really the way these smaller marionettes and things should be done, is they're only really held up by the head. So that when you move the controller around, the head will move around. But the way I have it strung up, if I try and do that too much, the body starts to shift as well, along with the head. The head will tilt while the body kind of tips as well. It doesn't look right. I'd rather just have the one movement. So I've, like I said, made the new doll much lighter. The internal parts are very light. So I'm hoping that it won't be a problem being held up by the 2 heads. But I'm going to start stringing that up now. So I'm going to put these 2 away. And then this is the dancing one, which is sort of similar, except, like I said, it has different feet that I can manipulate with my feet. But there's a whole other workshop on him. Yeah, there's a whole other workshop that you can look up in the playlist on the dancing marionette. But anyway, I'm going to put these two away and we're going to start stringing up the new one and see how it all looks. Okay, so I've just started stringing him up, but I had to make a little alteration to the controller that I thought was worth showing. I needed to add a little extra board here and a hook because I realized that even though it's nice to have this strap here on the back that we can put our hand under, that's not going to be very good for hanging, because if I hung this, the center of gravity is located near the front here, where the cross is right here, of course. This is where the head is going to be. So I realized since that's the center of gravity, that's where I needed to hang it from. And I also saw a little thing online that said a good way to tell if you have the right center of gravity, you should be able to balance a controller with one finger, which I am. You see, it's balanced. I'm holding everything up right now with one finger right underneath the center of gravity. So there we are. So just wanted to show that off. So the head, I'm currently stringing up to make sure I got that all set. And that's the most important thing to start at. And then I'm going to start doing everything after. I just make sure the two sides are balanced. And I'm going to put one in the back to make sure that the top part of the head will tip forward and try and stay closed. So let's keep stringing things up and we'll see how it looks when it's all done. Alright guys, so here we go. Here's how it all turned out. Here is the double plane controller. There's still some work to do, but overall I think that it turned out pretty well. You can just kind of fun to control. Yeah, let's get his feet level to the ground. So here's the whole idea. Trying to get his feet to move here. Oko's never been a very good walker. But there we are. I can kind of see how he's doing it here. It's going to take some work. Oko's never been the greatest walker. I think I might change this to portrait mode so that we can see it better. Alright guys, so there we go. So here is the double plane controller. He's temporarily wired up here. So we'll kind of try and get his feet level here. Yeah, and I really like the way it worked out. Here's the idea, kind of. It's hard to get his feet to move. I'm going to have to add some weights to the feet, and I have some practicing to do. Anyway, Oko's never been a strong walker in the marionette form, but it's something I'm determined to do. So we'll see. We'll get some practice in this, and I might want to loosen the joints and the legs as well a little bit in order to make that work better. So the one nice thing here as well is you can pull the string in the middle here to control the hands, but otherwise they're connected to one another. The hands. And the switches need some work. So this is what I'm going to do next, I think. Here's the eye, which kind of works, I think. Yeah, this one's the eye. The eye one, so for the triggers, the eye works well. Now, the eyes have always worked well on that one. But I gotta redesign the head. I'm trying to get his mouth to move, but I'm still having a little trouble getting his mouth to stay closed in a resting position. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is create a head that's split. There's gonna need to be extra fabric back here because it still wants to stay in its resting position, which is open, agape the mouth. Even though I've split the foam in the back and reduced the foam, and I've added a weight to the tip of the nose, it's still hard to get Oko to keep his mouth shut. So this talking trigger is going to need some work. It's going to need a better head. But I like the idea of having the switches, but this one's fun, huh? The eyes are fun. Yeah, so that's it, guys. So I think the next workshop I'm going to work on is going to be that head for this marionette. So there's going to be sort of a follow-up to this one pretty soon. I'll have to see how much work we can get in on these feet. They're not raising very high. Maybe we can get them to step higher. Yeah, like I said, if Oko's joints were a little looser. Oops, I should be holding this. Anyway, if the leg joints were a little looser, I think they might lift a little bit nicer, but yeah. So there you are. So that's it for this workshop, guys. There's the new marionette plane. The main emphasis for this video was the handle, so I'm kind of happy with how it's turned out. And I'm going to tweak this a little bit more and work on this. So you can also, here's, I forgot to show this off. Here's where I can like take this and really move the feet. We're going to work on this. Yeah, there you go, guys. So there's the new marionette handle that I'm going to tinker around with and play with this. And like I said, I think I'm going to do, if I can just alter this head a little bit more to make him be able to talk, then we'll really have something. And we'll be really ready to do something amazing with this one. All right? All right, so that's everything for now, guys. Thanks for watching this workshop. I'm Brandon from the Vancouver Pupps. This is Oko. We'll see you guys on the next workshop. Bye.